Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, thank you for convening this meeting on the current situation in Ukraine. I thank Under-Secretary General Mr. Feldman for his briefing. I thank all of you for your support to the elections Ukraine held on May 25th. Thank you for kind recommendations and encouragement what the new government and the President are planning to do to consolidate Ukraine. Thank you for sharing your assessments as to the elections, which are coinciding with the assessments of OAC, one of the largest observing missions. OAC stated that presidential elections in Ukraine on May 25 were free, democratic, and held in full conformity with national legislation and international standards. It became a historical success of the Ukrainian people and its democratic state. On 25th May, people confirmed their readiness to protect the native land from the existing external threats, desire for peace and European future, as well as absolute rejection of Russian aggression. The vast majority of Ukrainian citizens from all regions of the country, including from occupied Crimea, participated in the vote at more than 90% of the country's polling stations, thereby confirming full representativeness and legitimacy of their will. It is important that elections resulted crushed all anti-Ukrainian propaganda cliché. Were all the Ukrainian fascists, Nazis, if so-called ultra-nationalist candidates gained minimum support in the elections? Or are all phantom supporters of succession or federalization of Ukraine if almost 90% of voters from all regions of the country, including the occupied Crimea, casted their ballots for the candidates who stand for unitary Ukraine and its European integration? All participants of the presidential campaign acknowledged that it had been democratic and legitimate. Mr. Petro Poroshenko received major support in all regions of Ukraine, including eastern and southern regions, which confirms the strong will of the whole population of Ukraine for unity of the nation. President-elect got full legitimacy to fulfill his mandate on behalf of the entire Ukrainian nation. Among his top priorities is to achieve stabilization and reconciliation of the eastern regions of Ukraine, which suffered from Russian propaganda and illegal activities of Russian insurgents and mercenaries. President-elect has already announced his plans to visit Donbass right after his inauguration. This is a clear signal to everyone in the east of Ukraine that their voice will be heard as long as it is peaceful. Presidential campaign 2014 was conducted in times of social and political tensions, security challenges, which Ukraine faces for the first time in its modern history. Unfortunately, because of the occupation of the territory of Autonomous Republic of Crimea, there was no possibility to establish the electoral commissions and to conduct presidential elections in Crimea. At the same time, citizens of Ukraine who live in the occupied peninsula had opportunities to vote at the polling station in Kherson region, which neighbors Crimea, or at any other polling stations in the territory of Ukraine. The complex security situation in Donetsk and Lugansk significantly undermined the election process in these two cities. According to the statement of preliminary findings and conclusions by the International Election Observation Mission, you can find it in the integrity of the OEC web page. Serious problem, I quote, serious problems in Donetsk and Lugansk regions, including intrusion into the and forced eviction and closure of district elections commissions by armed groups, intimidation of election officials, including abductions, death threats, forced entry into private homes, seizure of equipment and election materials, and the shooting of a candidate proxy. These illegal actions constituted an attempt to prevent the election, deny citizens and fundamental right to freely participate and elect their chosen representative. End of quote. After the election, Kremlin officials promised to respect the choice of Ukrainian people. In light of what is happening now on the Russian-Ukrainian borders and in the region, we take it with a grain of salt. On May 21, May 24, May 26, dozens of armed people attacked the Ukrainian borders from the Russian side. 40 vehicles with armed people attempted to break through the Ukrainian frontiers from the Russian side. We still have not got a reasonable answer from the Russian side. What hundreds of the Chechens battalion people are doing in Ukraine? They are not concealing their identities. They speak freely with the reporters and admit that they came from Russia to protect interest. What interest Chechens are going to protect in Ukraine? Most probably Christian Orthodoxy or Slav ethnicity? The same question we raised demanding what hundreds of heavily armed Russian Cossacks are doing in Ukraine, particularly from formation of Wolf Centurion with the notorious past in the Second World War. They're also not concealing their identities as well, operating in Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. Before that, they were in the Crimea. Another question is why most leaders of the illegal self-proclaimed authorities on the territory of Donetsk and Lugansk regions are of Russian, or not origin, but citizenship. Alexander Borodai, self-proclaimed prime minister of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, is a Russian citizen from Moscow. Igor Strelkov, Girkin, military commander of terrorists in Slavyansk, is the Russian citizen and Russian military intelligence special force officer. Igor Bezler, military commander of terrorist group based in Gorlovka, is also Russian citizen and colonel of Russian army, as he publicly admitted earlier. Who have authorized those Russian citizens to represent the people of Donbass, to speak on their behalf and calling them to sacrifice their lives and to kill their compatriots? On election day, May 25, the pro-Russian insurgent group attacked polling station in Novodyar. As a result of the fight where one was killed, Ukrainian law enforcement detained a group of 13 persons whose leader appeared to be Russian citizen. Despite some hints on conciliatory rhetoric, our Russian neighbor, which happens to be one of the Security Council permanent members, continuous aggression against a sovereign UN member state. In the wake of election, we witnessed another brutal violations of Ukrainian territory by armed insurgent groups from the Russian side. Despite warnings passed on by Ukrainians through diplomatic channels regarding concentration of up to 40 trucks with armed people on the border with Ukraine, Russia's side did not assume any measures to prevent their breakthrough into the territory of Ukraine. On May 27, about 4 a.m., the convoy consisting of several trucks and passengers cars made an attempt to cross the state border. After the exchange of fire with the Ukrainian border guard servicemen, part of the Russian motorcade managed to break through and went in the direction of the town of Antrasit. It happened while Russian border guards did absolutely nothing. Moreover, there is every reason to believe that the penetration of the armed people in the territory from Ukraine is organized and financed and encouraged from the Russian side. Furthermore, the Russian Federation has failed to condemn participation of Russian citizens in mercenaries activities in Ukraine and is doing nothing to prevent illegal penetration of armed groups from its territory, thus conniving such actions. In fact, we are dealing with uncovered aggression against Ukraine from the Russian side, with exporting instability into the territory of our country. At present, our law enforcement officers in eastern regions of Ukraine stand against skilled armed mercenaries who are ready to plunder, intimidate, torture, and murder Ukrainian citizens. Today, armed pro-Russian groupings started to attack peaceful citizens. They fired at the school and the residential area of Slavyansk. We have no sign of Russian condemnation of such acts. Instead, Russia has offered its humanitarian assistance to the population of the eastern Ukraine, referring to the alleged calls of local citizens and organizations. We would like to address to the Russian side: all Russia can do for people of eastern Ukraine is to cease its support to the illegal military formations. We appreciate Secretary General's mediation role, namely his recent statement on the peaceful settlement of the situation in eastern region of Ukraine. Ukrainian government stands for peaceful solution of the current situation. The peace can be achieved if Russian side would stop flood the professional mercenaries to Ukraine with the aim to destabilize situation in eastern Ukraine and would stop encouragement of separatism. We call on Security Council and the international community to categorically demand from Russian Federation to cease the practice of provoking instability, to withdraw all formations of Russian armed forces, paramilitary organizations, groups, and their citizens from Ukraine, and to fulfill their obligations it undertook in accordance with the Geneva-Ukraine Agreement. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Ukraine for his statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of... You want to speak? The representative of Russia has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give him the floor.
Thank you, President. You just looked at me, and so I decided to just say a few words. Of course, I just won't respond to this sort of selection of pseudo-facts, pseudo-evidence or evidence put forth by my Ukrainian colleague, but I just note that, yet again, the representative of the Ukraine is talking, but he doesn't note his own people. That is, he's making all these claims against Russia. The situation in which the east of the country is exploding after a coup d'etat which took place in Kiev on 22 February, that's the situation, and we all know that. And our Ukrainian colleague does too, but he just doesn't want to acknowledge that because he doesn't know what to tell the Ukrainian people. Now again, we heard the idea about Ukrainian unity, but we've already expressed our concerns in our statement, and I'm not going to repeat them. However, just blaming Russia is not going to solve the issues for the Ukrainian people. Thank you.